The world he once lived in was destroyed. Hordes of monsters poured out of the rift, bringing chaos. People had to fight them just to survive. The hero also dedicated his whole life to this, fighting off the creatures. Despite his wounds and fatigue, he continued on his way. Thus, day after day passed in endless battles for the future. A month passed, and the enemies became stronger and more numerous. A year later, his gaze became even more determined, hardened by battles. 10 years passed in the blink of an eye in this brutal war. Now, with just one sword, he could defeat any monster without knowing fear. But then an enemy appeared before him, surpassing all the previous ones. The enemy, with sadness in his eyes, offered him to surrender because the old world had disappeared. The hero realized that before him was the root cause of all troubles. The monster, seeing his talent, offered him to become his tool. But the hero only grinned, rejecting such an offer. With a furious cry, he rushed into a desperate attack. His blade rushed straight towards the huge opponent. Putting all his strength into it, he delivered a crushing blow. Even a powerful enemy wavered before such determination. The monster's gaze became stern, foreshadowing a new round of battle. The hero rises into the air again, aiming at the enemy. His shining eye burns with unwavering courage. The monster meets his attack with a powerful counterblow. The monster dismissively throws away the warrior, considering him weak. The hero's face is distorted with pain, but he doesn't make a sound. He is thrown back, barely managing to regroup. Raising his head, he sees the figure of the enemy looming over him. The enemy looks down on him, radiating superiority. The monster gathers dark energy in his fist, preparing to strike. A destructive force descends, shaking the earth around. The hero falls to his knees, surrounded by flames and sparks. The monster stands with its back turned, its dark aura oozing out, and a crystal visible on its chest. A close-up of the glowing blue crystal on the monster's chest. The hero looks up, full of determination, seeing the enemy before him. His sword, charged with golden energy, flies spinning towards the target. The blade plunges right into the crystal on the monster's chest. The crystal on the monster's chest cracks, emitting a bright light. The enemy looks down in rage, but the hero does not retreat. The blue crystal shatters into many sparkling fragments. The monster screams in surprise and pain, looking at its chest. The enemy silhouette dissolves in a flash of light, marking the end. The hero's wounded face, eyes closed from extreme fatigue. He falls to the ground, exhausted, surrounded by the remains of the battle. Suddenly his eye opens, a spark of life flickering in it. A shooting star streaks across the night sky like a beautiful vision. Someone's feet in sandals slowly walk along the ground. A young man with dark hair walks down the street, his gaze calm. A red warning light flashes alarmingly on the wall of the building. In front of him is the Namsan B gate. Only C-rank heroes are allowed to enter. The guy approaches a restricted area, intended only for the chosen few. A boy with a backpack stands in front of a building in the Yongsan district of Seoul. He easily jumps over the high fence, raising dust. One powerful jerk, and he is already in forbidden territory. The red alarm light is flashing. An unregistered hero has entered the gate. His gaze is full of determination. He is not going to back down. The hero finds himself in a forest filled with sunlight. He walks calmly along the path in his sandals. A sudden call makes him stop and turn around. A group of armed men asks him if he is lost. They invite him to come with them since he is already here. The guy calmly turns around at the stranger's call. The armed trio looks at his strange outfit with surprise. The group leader notices that even the porters are not dressed so simply. Their attention is drawn to the ordinary backpack on the young man's back. The sandals on the boy's feet make them even more suspicious. The hero rubs his neck, calmly replying that he just arrived. One of the fighters immediately decides that the guy was abandoned by his group. The older one condescendingly explains to the newcomer his mistake. He advises to first get a license and start with simpler gates. The hero's gaze becomes cold. He is not impressed by their help. The Trinity looks at the hero's reaction in amazement, not believing their eyes. One of them rushes forward, shouting that something is wrong with this psycho, but he is held back. The leader decides to leave the guy, saying that he will only learn from his own experience. He adds that the gate is not what you see on TV or online. Suddenly, a huge horned monster appears behind the hero, confirming the leader's words. A close-up of the monster's ferocious face with glowing eyes and huge fangs. The hero stops, slightly lowering his backpack. His gaze changes. The monster rushes at the unsuspecting young man with incredible speed. The hero's eye flashes with golden light and he says, 10 years. The monster's huge fang slams down on the ground, raising dust. The monster freezes in shock, his eyes widening in surprise. The golden light in the hero's eye flares brighter as he swings his arm to strike. The hero strikes with incredible force, distorting the air around him. The monster is thrown back. It doesn't have time to react. The monster is defeated and lies on the ground in the middle of a forest clearing. The hero looks at the result, thinking, really, no difference. He stands calmly over the defeated enemy, the dust slowly settling. The hero's hand drops relaxed. The fight was too short. Suddenly, a large, curved blade appears in his hand. The hero looks forward thoughtfully. His intentions are still unclear. The hero's sharp blade cuts through the monster's flesh, leaving traces of a dark substance. Splashes of dark liquid fly off, marking final victory. The hero coolly extracts something from the defeated monster. In his hand is a glowing red crystal taken from the monster. It was a low-ranking magic stone that he would not have paid attention to before. The guy casually puts the stone in his backpack, not paying any attention to it. He sits down on the ground, looking out over the sun-drenched forest. Suddenly, his gaze sharpens again, his golden eyes noticing a new threat. Clawed paws with bandaged feet approach from the shadows. A whole horde of goblin-like creatures with glowing eyes appears before the hero. The hero deftly dodges the attack of a huge goblin. Clutching the red crystal, he continues the fight with icy calm. The young man slips past the attacking monsters without receiving a scratch. Another goblin is defeated and remains lying on the ground. The hero stands in the middle of a clearing, surrounded by neutralized enemies. His face remains impassive, his gaze directed forward. Meanwhile, a new fully equipped squad is moving through the forest. The girl from the squad thinks anxiously about that strange guy. She worries that he might have died, much to her companion's surprise. The squad leader grimly suggests that the boy might have been the intruder. Meanwhile, agents from the control center are already rushing to the scene. Namsan Gate is a C-rank location that requires elite fighters. The previous squad is confident that the guy will survive if he doesn't get into trouble. They think he is trembling with fear, waiting to be rescued by agents. But the hero meets another monster with a precise blow to the jaw. The young man unleashes a series of powerful attacks on the enemy. The monster's fang shatters into pieces from the crushing force. The monster is stunned, not believing what is happening. The hero rises into the air for another kick. His attack hits the target, knocking the monster out. The fallen goblins lie on the ground. The battle is clearly over. The hero removes his blade, drops of dark substance dripping from the blade. With shining eyes, he decides, 3 more magic stones. A clear sky spread over the forest, promising a short respite. His backpack was noticeably heavier from the loot he had collected. The hero is contemplating his meager catch when he notices an approaching figure. A stranger in a suit calls out to him, attracting the young man's attention. The guy turns around, his gaze warily studying the newcomer. A squad of agents in strict black suits appears before him. Agents from the gate control center demand that the hero present his license. The hero asks again in surprise, "Gate control center?" The agent in dark glasses insistently demands cooperation, hiding his irritation. The young man's golden eyes study the agents carefully, sensing trouble. The guy thinks with annoyance, what a hassle, clearly not wanting to obey. The senior agent orders his subordinate to get the handcuffs, who becomes visibly nervous. An agent with handcuffs approaches, warning of the consequences of disobedience. The agent's hand tries to grab the young man, intending to detain him. The agent persuades the guy to go to the center, warning him about the responsibility for resistance. The hero easily evades the attempt to put handcuffs on him. The agent's face distorts with surprise. He did not expect such a reaction. The hero coldly demands that the agent stop bothering him and leave. The senior agent clicks his tongue, and his subordinate with the baton looks visibly nervous. 2 agents activate their energy batons, preparing to attack. The 4th-tier magic wand, according to the agent, is good against orcs. The young man instantly disarms one of the attackers, who screams in surprise. The hero's face is in shadow. He gives the final warning. The guy's sparkling eyes do not bode well. He advises to leave while he can. The hero lowers his head, his muscles tensing in preparation for the next movement. The guy easily blocks the blows of the clubs with both hands. His gaze remains steely as he deflects another attack. The hero's hand breaks the agent's baton with a crunch. He grabs one of the agents by the jacket, preparing to lunge. The young man neutralizes 2 attackers in a jump. A powerful kick sends the agent flying. The hero looks at the defeated agent, whose weapon lies nearby. The senior agent watches in horror, not believing his eyes. The young man turns to face him, his gaze cold and determined. Suddenly, the hero's figure blurs, disappearing from sight. The stunned agent looks around. not understanding where the guy disappeared to. The hero appears behind the senior agent, delivering a precise blow to him. The senior agent reels back from the blow, unable to believe what has happened. He turns around with difficulty, his face distorted with bewilderment and pain. A conversation emerges. Registered heroes are not interfered with if they do not break the law. The agent remembers the rifts, his face tightening with worry. Rifts are portals to other worlds from where terrible monsters crawl out. Monster loot is a valuable resource, and the gates are strictly controlled by the government. Uncontrolled zones full of dangers are known as rifts. The hero coldly asks whether he will be pursued at any gate. The young man speaks with disdain of the trespassing charges. The agent nervously confirms, unregistered violators will be immediately detained. The agent screams that the rifts are not gates, and the Hero Association will not forgive him. The hero indifferently says, "What difference does it make?" looking at the defeated man. The agent panics and thinks that the guy has gone crazy, and that he should have called for help immediately. The agent's eyes widen in horror at the inevitable. The young man throws the senior agent aside with a slight movement. The hero turns around, calmly stating that it was nothing special. The fallen agent on the ground shouts threats at the guy as he walks away. The young man goes deep into the forest, ignoring the agent's cries for reprisals. Suddenly, a shining structure appears in front of him, like a splitting mirror. A figure in the darkness screams, "Oh no," sensing trouble. Someone's voice, like a scream, deafens the hero, and he loses consciousness, feeling like he is being pulled somewhere. The armored figure floats in the void, contemplating that this is death. The eyes slowly open, a whirlwind flashes before them, and consciousness returns. A stranger clad in armor falls headfirst from the sky. The falling man sees a young man standing calmly against the backdrop of clouds and asks who he is. The young man introduces himself as Seo Do-jun and says that he is dying. The falling man offers a deal. If Do-jun listens to his request, he will disappear, but he refuses. The face of the armored warrior flying down expresses calm determination. Seo Do-jun is slightly surprised or intrigued by this reaction to the refusal. The falling stranger declares that he has no regrets about the life he lived. The warrior shares his pain, betrayal, a collapsed country, lost loved ones. His life, full of battles, now seems meaningless and empty. The knight's words make Seo Do-jun shudder. They are too familiar. Do-jun thinks about his grandmother and Yoon-young. He doesn't want the same fate for them. The falling warrior sighs, waiting for what Seo Do-jun will say. "So what do you want?" the knight asks, and Do-jun's face lights up. The young man places his hand on his heart, ready to reveal his deepest desire. Suddenly we are in Seoul, at the Gasan Digital Complex. This place is now the Heroes Complex, a center for trading artifacts from the gate. A battered Do-jun, carrying a backpack, wanders through the busy streets of the complex. Do-jun wonders whether he should go into the shop that buys magic stones. A tattooed guy staring at his phone greets him behind the counter. The young man declares his desire to sell the stones, and the merchant promises a better price. The contents of Do-jun's backpack, a scattering of red crystals, ends up on the table. The buyer winces with disgust, advising that in future the stones should be wiped clean of any remains. Noting the large number of artifacts, the seller asks Do-jun to wait for sorting. The hero is offered coffee while he waits, and he casually accepts. Do-jun drinks the drink, watching as the merchant carefully wipes each stone. The appraiser lists the number of stones of varying value, mentioning a 40% commission. The salesman announces the final price as 5.46 million won, but Do-jun interrupts him. Do-jun is outraged. He mined the stones and the buyer just buys them. Why such a commission? The merchant smirks, saying that the commission is usually 45%, so 40% is still quite reasonable. The hero decides to take the stones, but the buyer is sure that he won't be offered any more anywhere. Suddenly, the merchant grabs Do-jun's hand, preventing him from leaving. The buyer demands payment for the appraisal and coffee since the deal falls through. The cost of the ruined towel is added to the bill, and Do-jun states that he has no money. The merchant's face is distorted by a malicious grin. He hints that Do-jun will have problems. 3 thugs appear from behind the buyer, ready to intervene. The big guy asks what happened, and if someone is causing trouble again. Do-jun's gaze turns icy, foreshadowing a difficult conversation. The brute looks at Do-jun with obvious menace, anticipating an easy reprisal. The merchant trembles in horror, realizing that something bad is about to happen. Suddenly, the head bouncer flies back without having time to do anything. Dojin stands over the fallen brute, clenching his fist after the brief skirmish. All three bouncers and the terrified merchant are on the floor in the blink of an eye. The young man calmly heads towards the exit, his steps echoing loudly in the silence. Dojin returns to the counter and dictates new conditions to the stunned merchant, 1% commission. With a satisfied grin, the hero suggests making profitable deals from now on. The store sign promises the best prices, and the merchant invites you to come back again. Dojin ends up with a hefty wad of money in his hands, the result of his persuasiveness. Grandma and Yoon look at the huge amount in complete amazement. Holding a wad of money, the grandmother asks Dojin incredulously where it came from. Dojin calmly explains that it was an old friend who repaid the debt with interest. The grandmother suspiciously asks whether he even had such a friend. The young man replies with a sly smile that he is an acquaintance from the place where he grew up. The grandmother seems to calm down, clutching the money to her and saying that she remembers. Yoon excitedly asks her brother if this means they are rich now. Dojun confirms with a gentle smile that from now on, yes. Woon-young and Grandma start jumping and screaming with happiness. Dojun watches his sister dance, his gaze full of determination. Dojun remembers his wish to protect his grandmother and Woon-young. He wanted the safest home for them, but the night disappeared without waiting for an answer. Reflected in the glass, Dojun sees himself being hugged by his sister. He remembers the moment he woke up in Seo Dojun's body. The safest house in Korea costs 110 billion won. The goal has been set. Yoon hugs his brother tightly, and he is confident that with his strength, money is not a problem. Rifts, gates, monsters, all of these were weaker than the world he had seen fall. For him, the former sword god, this new world was child's play. The hero has not yet recovered even a tenth of his former strength. Suddenly, someone calls out loudly to Seo Dojun from outside, interrupting his thoughts. Dojun asks his family to stay inside, intending to check who came himself. The hero leaves the apartment and sees two suspicious guys at the threshold. Uninvited guests demand that Seo Dojun repay a debt of 48 million won. Dojun understands that these are collectors to whom the previous owner of the body owes money. The bandits claim that the money from the gate is now theirs, according to some contract. One of the extortionists approaches, advising him not to pretend to be unfairly offended. Suddenly, Dojun deals a crushing blow to the first collector. The second bandit also immediately receives a rebuff from the angry youth. The extortionist, who remained on his feet, recoils in horror, not believing his eyes. Dojun, with shining eyes, declares that he has already paid 9 million and now he is owed. The surviving extortionist trembles, not believing that the person in front of him is Seo Dojun. Dojun, with a sparkling gaze, tells him to tell the boss that he will visit him in person soon. The last collector gets his dose of persuasion and disappears from sight. The scene changes to Dojun and Yoon walking through a busy shopping mall. The toy store window beckons with rows of adorable teddy bears. Woon-young's eyes sparkle with delight as she asks hopefully if they will buy her a new doll. Dojun smiles and allows his little sister to choose whatever she wants. The hero reflects that the memories of the former Dojun have awakened new feelings in him. While Woon-young chooses a toy, Dojun admits to himself that for now it's just sympathy. The girl hugs a big bear, and Dojun remembers the kindness of his former self to his stepsister. Dojun decides that at least he will protect this warm feeling. Yoon, clutching a small bunny, asks her brother if she can have it. The girl holds a charming white plush toy tightly in her hands. Suddenly, a huge yellow teddy bear appears in front of Yoon. Dojun reminds her with a smile that he promised to buy her whatever she wants. Yoon's face lights up with a happy, wide smile. An appetizing meal appears on the table in front of the brother and sister, noodles, a burger, and potatoes. Dojun and Yoon sit at a table in a cafe, enjoying lunch. Suddenly, someone calls out to Dojun, and he turns around in surprise. Behind him stands an unfamiliar woman in glasses with 2 guards. A stranger in glasses comments condescendingly on Dojun and his companion's appearance. Her caustic words about his mother make Dojun tense up. A woman with 2 security guards unceremoniously approaches their table. Woon-young, chewing on a burger, asks in surprise who this lady is. Dojun silently glares at the stranger with an icy gaze. An unpleasant, smug grin appears on the woman's face. Little Yoon watches the tense scene with concern. The lady leans over to the girl and asks her name. Yoon replies, Lee Yoon. Hearing the surname, the woman curiously asks if she is from the Lee family. She then makes derogatory comments about Woon-young's clothes again, comparing her to her mother. The woman looks at Dojun smugly, waiting for his reaction to the humiliation. Dojun remains silent, clenching his teeth, and the stranger continues to provoke him with questions. The lady's face is distorted with impatience. She is clearly waiting for an answer from the young man. The stranger unceremoniously addresses Yun-young, calling out to her, "Hey, baby." She asks the girl an offensive question about the meaning of a derogatory word used against her mother. Dojun's eye flashes with anger. He can barely contain his rage at her words. Yun-young calmly responds to the impudent lady, comparing her appearance to an orc. The woman is stunned and speechless by the girl's unexpected answer. Dojun's gaze turns icy, but there is approval of his sister's courage in it. Memory. Little Dojun, lonely and poor after the death of his mother, ended up in his father's house. Flashback. Young Dojun suffers humiliation and neglect in his father's new family. Soon he is kicked out to live with his grandmother along with his half-brother. Before us is the old Seo Dojun, a boy forced to hide his pain and resilience. The current Dojun wonders what kind of willpower it took to endure all of this. The hero clenches his fists. He swears that now everything will be completely different. The scene returns to the cafe. The woman quips that they have known each other for 12 years, but she is still disgusted. She angrily lists Dojun's supposed flaws, from his appearance and character to his stupidity. Dojun counters that she herself experiences an inferiority complex in front of beautiful and kind women. He continues by stating that she, who is only concerned with her brother's finances, is no better than a child. "Not a drop," Dojun finishes his thought as the cafe staff and customers watch. Dojun looks calmly at the woman, whose words do not affect him. The lady in glasses exclaims in shock, "What?" Her guards are also confused. Suddenly, a calm voice is heard addressing Dojun. "Long time no see." An elegant blonde with a piercing gaze approaches them. The woman with glasses rushes towards her, shouting, "Mom!" pointing at Dojun. She starts to complain to her mother, but she abruptly cuts off her whining. The mother strictly scolds her daughter for her ill-mannered behavior in public. She then turns to Dojun with a smile, asking how he is doing. The woman reproaches Dojun for rarely being at home, but he sees only hypocrisy in her words. She mentions her father's concerns, but Dojun mentally calls her words disgusting. Dojun coldly remarks that they are not here to exchange pleasantries. He abruptly ends the conversation, ordering his stepmother to get out. The blonde's face is distorted with anger, her eyes flashing with fury. The woman turns around and her bespectacled daughter looks at Dojun in shock. The stepmother leaves, wondering if this is the same Dojun who used to endure humiliation without complaint. The daughter runs after her mother in panic, calling her, and the guards follow them. Dojun stands unmoved, and Yun-young watches him silently from the table. The hero calmly suggests that his sister leave, and Eun-young quietly agrees. Dojun mentally states, "The old Seo Dojun who only endured is no more." He warns his family, the sooner they realize this, the better it will be for them. The car with the stepmother and her daughter quickly drives away. In the salon, the daughter angrily yells at her mother, asking why she didn't deal with Dojun. The stepmother calmly fixes her makeup, while her daughter is indignant about Dojun's words. Suddenly, the blonde asks in an icy tone why Dojun is still alive. The bald assistant reports that Kang Chiolu left Dojun at the gate. The stepmother screams in rage, asking why the one who was supposed to die is still walking the earth. The daughter, in horror, asks her mother again if she really wanted Dojun to die. The blonde, arms crossed, looks thoughtfully out the window, immersed in dark thoughts. The shocked daughter does not calm down, demanding that her mother explain her terrible words. Above, the daughter is seen desperately asking if her mother tried to eliminate Dojun. The stepmother asks her daughter with a sly grin if she still likes Dojun. The daughter panics and denies it, fearing that her grandfather or father will find out about their conversation. The mother suddenly grabs her daughter by the face, forcing her to shut up. The blonde coldly states that it is her business and that her daughter should not interfere. The girl trembles with fear under her mother's stern gaze and strong grip. In the car, the stepmother is mentally seething with rage, remembering Dojun's insolence. She swears that she will get rid of him at any cost, her gaze full of determination. 10 years ago, an ominous, pulsating rift appeared in the world. Monsters poured out of the rift, bringing death and destruction to all living things. The world plunged into chaos, cities burned under the onslaught of unknown creatures. But with the appearance of the heroes, the chaos instantly died down. Along with them, mana stones appeared, obtained from monsters. Mana stones have replaced traditional energy sources, and the entire industry now revolves around gates and heroes. The car brakes sharply, and the text reads, "So now." Dojin is standing on the sidewalk, and the sign explains, "If you want to earn money, become a hero." The hero approaches a building with a sign, Yeongdongpo HCS Capital. This is his goal. Dojin confidently walks towards the entrance of the building. A close-up of the Yeongdongpo HCS Capital sign confirms his arrival. Inside, he is greeted by a man wearing dark glasses, casually smoking a cigarette. Dojun finds himself in front of 3 suspicious guys, one of whom rudely asks, "Who the hell are you, bastard?" A man in glasses puts out his cigarette and asks a threatening question. Dojin sits quietly, pondering the man's words. He talks about compensation for the damage caused. The man with glasses notices a change in Dojun. He realizes that Dojun has awakened his powers. Dojun looks at the man confidently, showing off his new strength. The man with glasses mocks Dojun's awakening. He stands up and orders his men to deal with Dojun. The man's men surround Dojun, ready to attack. The man is confident in his numerical superiority. Dojun looks coldly from under his brows, his determination unwavering. The man with glasses looks around, ordering Dojun to sit down. Dojun, with a fiery gaze, declares that the conversation is not over yet. The leader screams in rage at how some boy dares to give him orders. The man adjusts his glasses in shock, not believing his ears. Dojun deftly dodges the attack as the thugs try to subdue him. One of the bandits is defeated, and Dojun is already dodging the next attack. The hero stabs the bald man, mentioning his illegal loan business. Dojun continues to press, saying that he knows about the fake IDs as well. He deals a crushing blow by demanding a hero's ID to earn money. Dojun delivers a powerful blow, incapacitating another opponent. The hero's next attack, and another bandit ends up on the floor. Dojun stands in the middle of the room, surrounded by defeated thugs. He demands a perfect hero ID without any problems. The gang leader sweats in horror when he hears that he has until tomorrow. The remaining bandits look at Dojun with undisguised fear. The leader panics and realizes that Dojun's strength may even be B-class. Dojun looms over the leader, demanding an answer, and he fearfully agrees. The hero grabs the man by the collar and he tries to add something. With blazing eyes, Dojun asks the main question. Did Hong Hee-ju order him to be eliminated? The leader trembles as he remembers the woman behind it all. Dojun's grip on his collar tightens, demanding an immediate answer. The man screams in horror as the hero throws him aside. Pinned against the wall, he remembers Hong Hee-ju's words about Dojun. The leader panics and shouts that she wanted to drive Dojun to despair with debts. Dojun listens coldly as he begs him to let go. The hero asks if that is why he was locked in the gate. The man, frightened, swears that he knows nothing about the gate. He claims that he wouldn't have received the money if Dojun had died there. Dojun looks thoughtfully, considering the information he received. Dojun thoughtfully says the name Kang Cheol-woo. He demands information from the leader about this man because he brought him to the gate. The hero leaves, leaving the bandits in their ransacked office. Dojun walks out onto the sunny street, his gaze directed into the distance. He recalls Kang Cheol-woo's request to take care of his family, clenching his fists in anger. Now Dojun is determined to fix everything, his determination unwavering. A brand new B-rank ID appears in the hero's hand. He places the card on the scanner at the entrance to the gate. The system confirms the identity, but warns of the low rank for this gate. Dojun looks at the map with annoyance, lamenting that the president did not give him a higher rank. Despite the warning of his low rank, Dojun resolutely enters the gate. He finds himself at the gate of the Night Island, a B-rank tunnel-type 2-person entrance. Due to the tunnel shape, only a single battle is possible here, which is difficult even for A rank. Dojun peers out from behind cover, assessing the impending danger. A small, confident grin appears on his face. He must fight hundreds of monsters alone in a dark, narrow tunnel, and the first one is already here. With his eyes shining, Dojun says, "I like it," preparing for the fight. The hero attacks the snake-like monster with lightning speed, dodging its attack. The monster opens its mouth wide, revealing fangs and dripping venom. Dojun recognizes the monster as a black killer viper, whose venom paralyzes with a touch. Dojun jumps and delivers a powerful kick to the monster. His foot slams hard into the viper's scales. The snake flies away from the crushing kick Dojun lands. The hero deftly dodges splashes of poisonous saliva. Dojun notices drops of poison on his glove. He chuckles, noting that the 300,001 gloves do a pretty good job. The hero's gaze becomes even more focused and dangerous. Suddenly, 3 more huge poisonous snakes appear. Dojun rushes towards the new threat without hesitation. Powerful blows leave deep marks on the walls of the tunnel. The poisonous liquid of the monsters flies in all directions from Dojun's blows. The hero stands with his back to the enemy, surrounded by fallen snakes and splashes of their venom. Dojun examines the viper's body, not finding the magic stone. He remembers that the chance of a stone dropping from such a creature is only 3%. The hero resolutely moves further along the tunnel, intending to defeat hundreds of monsters. Suddenly, Dojun finds himself in a new area where he is met by creepy skeletons. One of the skeletons in a dark robe looks menacingly at the hero. Dojun looks up, assuming that the boss of this location is in front of him. A huge golden snake with glowing green eyes looms over him. The hero throws off his backpack, noting that meeting the boss is even for the better because he began to wander. Dojun decides to quickly deal with the boss and return. He unleashes a powerful blow on the golden snake. To his surprise, the attack only slightly scratches the monster's scales. The golden snake instantly counterattacks with its tail. The monster's blow comes with incredible speed. Dojun is thrown back, barely able to stay on his feet. The boss's huge mouth with poisonous fangs hangs over the hero. Dojun deftly dodges, jumping over the snake's head. The hero lands firmly, ready to continue the fight. With a determined look, Dojun prepares for the next round. Dojun attacks again, but the blow only leaves a mark on the wall. Understanding flashes in his eyes, this opponent is too strong. The hero realizes that the boss is on a completely different level. His fists are powerless. Dojun ponders on how to defeat the monster without having full strength. Suddenly his gaze falls on something to the side. This is his backpack, from which the hilt of an old sword can be seen. A spark of a new idea lights up in Dojun's eyes. He takes out his worn sword, realizing that he has no other choice. The hero is sure that the power of a weapon depends on the skill of its owner. With sword in hand, Dojun prepares for the next stage of the fight. Dojun clutches an old sword, preparing to challenge the giant snake. He mentally asks the sword for just a moment of its power. The hero takes off, leaving behind only a blurry trail. In an incredible leap, Dojun raises his sword over the snake's massive body. With icy calm, he promises the viper his personal destruction. The blade in his hand seems to come to life, anticipating the battle. The golden snake lets out a furious roar, its green eyes burning with hatred. Dojun unleashes a series of rapid sword strikes on the monster. Each swing of the blade leaves deep marks on the snake's scales. The powerful attack causes chunks of the monster's tough skin to break off. Dojun looks at the defeated cartoon snake with relief, realizing that a disaster was avoided. The hero stands over the huge mouth of a golden snake, looking inside. Dojun examines the monster's massive fang, pondering its possible uses. He notes with relief that this dungeon turned out to be better than the previous one. Under the full moon, Dojun emerges from the B-rank gate, surprised at the time it took. The hero clenches his fist. His main goal is to restore his former power. Looking at the city at night, he is glad that his old comrades do not see his current state. At the entrance to the store, he is greeted by a cheerful inflatable figure, beckoning customers. A merchant in a bandana sorts through a handful of glittering red stones on the counter. The buyer tells Dojun that the stones are of excellent quality and reminds him of his 40% commission. Dojun looks at the buyer in surprise, considering the commission too high for a regular customer. The merchant, counting a wad of money, assures that this is the best price, since you won't have to pay taxes. The buyer puts the money on the table, calling the deal clean and profitable. The hero reluctantly takes the proceeds, his face expressing doubt. The merchant's attention is drawn to Dojun's battered face, and he inquires about the reason. Dojun angrily tells how the unknown person overpowered the security in him. The buyer morally notes that rank does not guarantee strength, only skill is important. The merchant continues his lecture, emphasizing the difference between a security guard and a true monster hunter. The buyer offers Dojun his help in a friendly manner if he ever needs it. The hero silently leaves the shop, leaving the merchant behind. Dojun leaves the shop with a gloomy look, leaving the merchant behind. Suddenly a beaten guy appears, his face distorted with anger. The guy points at Dojun in horror, screaming that he is the one who offended him. The merchant looks at Dojun in surprise, noting his neat appearance. The fence crosses his arms menacingly, accusing Dojun of attacking civilians. The beaten man grins maliciously, boasting about the connections of the hero merchant. Dojun coldly says, "Get lost," without turning around to face his pursuers. The merchant and the beaten boy freeze, stunned by his audacity. The hero turns around, his gaze piercing. "Do you want a rematch?" The merchant clenches his fists, his face contorted in rage at Dojun's insolence. The merchant recalls that the main reason for the death of heroes is skirmishes with each other, and not with monsters. The buyer decides to retreat, muttering, "See you later, I have to go." Dojun turns his icy gaze to the still stunned beaten guy. The hero coldly asks the trembling guy if he has any complaints against him. Dojun suddenly grabs the guy's bag, shaking out the red stones from it. The glittering stones crumble and Dojun orders them to be assessed. The beaten guy is shocked to recognize high-class magic stones, wondering who is in front of him. Dojun quickly calculates the cost of the stones on a calculator. On the table in front of him lies a scattering of precious red crystals, and he announces the amount, 150 million. The hero crosses his arms, noting with displeasure that for a whole day of hunting, this is only 150 million, and demands his share. The beaten man babble about the commission, frightened by Dojun's icy gaze. The hero grins, declaring a commission of 1% and demanding his sum. The guy explodes, reminding about 40% but immediately subsides, mentioning the boss. Dojun coldly orders that permission for payment be obtained immediately. The employee frantically calls his boss, explaining the situation before the stones fall. The hero suddenly snatches the phone from the stunned guy's hands. Dojun speaks calmly into the phone, demanding immediate payment. After hearing the answer, he agrees, but asks to return the phone to the employee. With unexpected force, Dojun throws the phone at the wall, smashing it into pieces. The hero declares that his superiors have given the go-ahead and demands the money immediately. A briefcase filled to the brim with stacks of money is opened in front of Dojun. The hero leaves with the money, throwing it away as a farewell so that from now on everything will be good, leaving the beaten man in bewilderment. 10 minutes later, the door of the buyer's shop closes. An angry salesman bursts in, demanding a report on the call and why the employee did not answer. A beaten guy, looking at a broken phone on the wall, dejectedly tells his boss that he is quitting. A close-up of the shattered phone highlights the employee's desperation. The merchant's eyes narrow, cold fury and determination evident in them. The former employee looks defiantly at his boss, not wanting to put up with this any longer. The merchant calls someone named Zhu Yan, his voice sounds tense. A mysterious woman with purple hair rushes to the call, her appearance promising new events. Elegant heels confidently step along the asphalt, approaching the scene of events. Hyun Ju Yeon appears, her purple hair flying as the crowd recognizes the celebrity. Juyeon's close-up highlights her stylish look and determined attitude. Juyeon heads straight to the fence's shop without looking back. The bell above the door rings, welcoming a new visitor. The former employee screams in horror upon recognizing Hyun Juyeon as she enters. Juyeon casually adjusts his glasses, confirming his identity with a slight grin. The guy realizes that the person in front of him is an S-rank hero, the boss's niece, and doesn't understand her visit. Juyeon explains that her uncle is concerned about the hero extorting money for the stones. She sits down, demanding a detailed account of what happened from the former employee. Meanwhile, Dojun is training in the yard of his house with a girl and a teddy bear next to him. The hero stands bare-chested, his muscles tense and his gaze full of determination. Dojun reflects that a daily income of 100 million is too little and he is short on time. He understands that in order to pass through the S-rank gate alone, he needs to urgently regain his former strength. Remembering the past, the hero laments that there is little mana in this world, and it will take years to restore it. Dojun dreams of having good equipment, but even the most basic gear costs a fortune. Suddenly the hero shudders, his face expressing surprise and wariness. Little Yoon-young also notices something, looking to the side with curiosity. Dojun suddenly grabs the girl, shouting that they need to take shelter inside immediately. The hero quickly pushes Yoon-young into the house, looking around with concern. The old woman asks Dojun worriedly what's going on. The hero pushes Yoon-young deeper into the house. The grandmother exclaims in horror, "Oh no!" The girl screams, covering her ears, thinking that an earthquake has begun. Dojun realizes with alarm that this is not an earthquake, but something else. Ominous, dark red spikes of energy erupt from the ground. The spiny appendages grow, pushing their way through the barrier. There is a structure of dark energy hanging over the house. It's a rift. Dojun furiously yells at Grandma and Yoon-young not to leave the room. The hero rushes across, striking one of the dark appendages. In the darkness, desperate cries of Yoon-young and Grandma are heard, calling for Dojun. Meanwhile, tension reigns in the Seoul Heroes Association. An employee urgently reports to his superior about the discovery of a new fault in Mappo. The head of the department is worried. A new fault has appeared after 63 days of calm. He immediately orders to contact the nearest guild, White Lion, and send all available heroes. The location is being clarified. The fault opened in the courtyard of a residential building. This creates a serious problem. If a civilian enters the rift, other heroes will not be able to enter. And if a civilian dies inside, the consequences will be dire. In this case, a wave of monsters will pour out from the rift zone for 10 days. Such an event threatens to devastate the whole of Seoul. It turns out that Seo Do-jun entered the rift in an attempt to save his younger sister. The department head wants to know what the probability is of monsters appearing if a civilian entered the rift. The answer is shocking. 99.9% appears on the screen. The association's employees are falling into despair, realizing the inevitability of disaster. Meanwhile, Juyeon is furiously tearing some document into pieces. She can't believe that Do-jun woke up as a hero. The assistant confirms Do-jun awakened during the previous incident but has not yet registered. The assistant's face distorts with horror. He understands that Kang Chol-woo has seriously exposed himself. Juyeon slams his fist on the table in rage, screaming why Kang Cheol-woo made things difficult and paid Do-jun. She orders to tell Kang Cheol-woo that if he doesn't deal with Do-jun, he will return 10 times more. The assistant reports that a new rift has opened in Mapo, right in Do-jun's house. The assistant confirms to Juyeon, Do-jun entered the rift and the media will report it soon. Juyeon smirks and assumes that he won't have to see this worthless boy again. Her face is distorted by a cold grimace. She's clearly not saddened by Do-jun's fate. Juyeon orders to keep her informed until there is complete certainty of the outcome. Meanwhile, Do-jun finds himself barefoot on the soft grass under an unfamiliar sky. He lies in the middle of a dense, sunlit forest, looking around in surprise. Standing up, Do-jun can't believe his eyes. This place seems incredibly familiar. A memory emerges. This is the Patishua forest, which he often visited in his youth. The trees, the grass, the wind, even the rich mana in the air, everything here is just like in his past. Do-jun looks at the gap between the trees, wondering what awaits him further in this forest. Do-jun realizes with a slight smile, he knew that this place was not simple. Before him rises the world tree, gigantic and shining with energy. This ancient spirit tree is the source of the purest flow of mana. The hero remembers. The fall of the previous world began when this tree was burned, disrupting the flow of mana. Now the world tree is standing, and Do-jun doesn't understand how this is possible. But he has hope. He will be able to return the mana of those times. Do-jun finds himself in the very heart of the tree, surrounded by streams of pure energy. He takes a deep breath, preparing to absorb this incredible power. The hero's face is calm. He is completely focused on absorbing mana. Day after day, Do-jun meditates in the shining core of the world tree. Do-jun reflects that he forgot about eating and drinking for 10 days straight, focusing entirely on his breathing. The full moon illuminates the night forest as the hero continues his deep meditation. Suddenly, Do-jun's eye flashes gold as he senses someone's presence. From the forest thicket emerge the terrifying Vulcan monsters, emitting an ominous purple aura. The hero recognizes them. These are the same creatures that burned the world tree in his past world. The monsters attack the tree from below while Do-jun watches from a high branch, ready to fight. Do-jun regretfully thinks that he could really use a water elemental sword right now. One of the Vulcans lunges forward in a furious attack, its claws glowing with purple energy. Enveloped in a blue aura, Do-jun firmly declares that it doesn't matter. He will crush everything. His hand fills with powerful blue energy, ready to unleash on his enemies. Do-jun unleashes a stream of blue energy onto the ground, preparing to attack. The monster Vulcan roars, feeling the hero's power, his mouth distorting. Do-jun's face is one of complete concentration, his eyes shining with determination. Another Vulcan, with its head glowing with purple energy, prepares to attack. The hero stands alone against several dark silhouettes of monsters, surrounded by a glow. A diagram showing Do-jun releasing mana, knocking back one Vulcan. Do-jun exhales, admitting that he hasn't used this much mana at once in a long time. The two Vulcan growl furiously, their mouths glowing with energy as they prepare to attack together. Purple energy projectiles fly at Do-jun, but he dodges them. Do-jun, with a serious look, gathers purple energy in his hands to counterattack. Do-jun is calm as he watches the effects of his attack, energy swirling around him. The hero stands firmly on the ground. His feet enveloped in a blue glow, he confirms the safety of the world tree. With a predatory grin and glowing eyes, Do-jun decides to test his mana in action. He turns to the remaining Vulcans, his body still radiating power. One of the monsters opens its toothy mouth in rage, preparing for another attack. But Do-jun's powerful blow catches Vulcan, distorting his body. A wave of destructive energy sweeps across the battlefield, destroying everything in its path. A bright flash of blue energy tears one of the monsters apart. The two Vulcan are engulfed in a blaze of energy, their silhouettes writhing in agony. The monster disintegrates into dark particles, leaving behind only a glowing red crystal. Dojin states, "It's done," standing over the red crystal left by the monster. With a sly grin, the hero thinks that by dealing with them, he will be able to get something. His eye gleams ominously. He hopes to obtain the eternal coal. Dojin remembers how many Vulcans need to be defeated to obtain the coveted artifact. The hero quickly attacks several monsters at once, throwing them back with powerful blows. The world tree emits glowing orbs as Dojin continues his battle at its roots. A shining golden coin appears among the red crystals on the ground. Dojin's hand reaches out cautiously towards this unexpected treasure. The hero looks at the coin, his eyes glow. This is the eternal coal. Dojin squeezes the coal and it flares with golden energy. He has it again. Dojin's hand squeezes the coal and it flares up even brighter with golden energy. The hero holds the flaming artifact with a satisfied grin, his eyes glowing orange. Dojin understands that his body cannot absorb more of the tree's mana, but there is another way. He decides to absorb coal to convert his mana into the fire element. Golden flames envelop Dojin as he begins the absorption process. The energy of the coal flows through his body, filling him with new strength. The hero remembers that previously the absorption of coal was instantaneous, but now it takes 10 minutes. Despite the difficulties, Dojin is determined to continue. Around him on the ground, there is now a scattering of red crystals and many golden coals. Dojin announces that he will absorb as many embers as he can while standing at the shining world tree. An ominous purple energy hangs over the crowd of onlookers, foreshadowing trouble. A reporter films the scene as officials and police observe the anomaly. One of the observers clenches his teeth in anger, clearly unhappy with the situation. Bang Seong-gu, the man in the suit, asks irritably what kind of chaos some madman has caused. Kim Hyun-woo, an elegant man with blue hair, remarks with a slight smile that the madman was trying to save his sister. Song waves it off, claiming that the boy thoughtlessly climbed into the rift without thinking about others. Hyun-woo tells Song that Gilma Hyung's instructions were to just wait for the wave. Hyun-woo asks thoughtfully, "But why?" mentioning the simultaneous rifts all over the world. Against the backdrop of eerie purple shadows and monster silhouettes, Hyun-woo notes that other countries were quicker. Bang Seong-gu becomes furious, shouting that they are in trouble because of one useless guy while Hyun-woo watches with interest. Song-gu clenches his fist in rage, threatening to punish the daredevil from the rift. Meanwhile, the ominous purple energy of the rift continues to distort reality. 28 days have passed. The Hero Association has declared the first level of monster threat. The news says, if a civilian who enters does not leave by the second day. Someone turns off the TV with the remote control, interrupting the alarming news. The man in dark glasses asks with a grin if Seo Do-jun is the daredevil. His assistant, Kim Ong-gu, confirms that it is indeed Seo Do-jun. The boss asks Ong-gu about Do-jun's chances of survival, to which he gives a near-zero prediction. However, the boss only grins sinisterly, finding the idea of a simple civilian laughable. 3 men appear, one of whom is bandaged, complaining about the association's misinformation. The boss in dark glasses thoughtfully suggests, "What if he is awakened?" Ong-gu explains that then everything depends on the level of the hero, but it is difficult to judge. The boss leans back in his chair, noting that being able to fight and surviving in the rift are two different things. Kim Ong-gu nods in agreement, deep in thought. Meanwhile, the older man braids the girl's hair, while the boss decides to just keep an eye on them for now. With a sinister grin, the boss lays out his cunning plan for whatever happens to Dojin. The world tree continues to glow, emitting magical spheres into the rift. Dojun, enveloped in energy, wonders how much time has passed. His hand clutches the unquenchable coal. It has absorbed hundreds of them. Dojun can now use fire mana, and his fire resistance has increased dramatically. Dojun realizes that his firepower has surpassed even the times when he was the sword god. The hero silently touches the world tree, feeling its ancient power. His hand on the bark of the tree, the connection with the past and the present is intertwined. Dojun sincerely thanks the world tree for the power it has given him. He collects the red crystals left by the monsters into a makeshift net. The hero sadly thinks that he may never see the tree again. But then he decisively declares, if the tree is in danger, he will return. Dojun vows to protect the world tree no matter the cost. The scene changes. A full moon illuminates a quiet night city. Suddenly, someone's face is distorted in a stream of ominous dark pink energy. Dojin's bare feet step onto the ground, surrounded by energy particles. A hero with a bag of crystals looks around a deserted city at night under a full moon. He feels someone's strong presence nearby, near the building with the stairs. Dojun swings the crystal net with a determined look, preparing for action. From around the corner, he notices his acquaintances Hyunwoo and Songwoo observing the situation. Dojun frowns, realizing that meeting these people from the guild will lead to problems. A golden flame flares up in his hand, ready to use new power. The hero rushes forward, leaving a trail of fire behind him. The fireball released by Dojun flies towards the building with the sign. The sign says Gyeonchan Hall. It seems to be an important facility. A powerful, fiery explosion hits the Gyeonchan Hall building, lighting up the night. Hyunwoo and Songwoo turn around in shock at the sound. Hyunwoo screams, "It's fire!" Hyunwoo jumps back, dodging the wave of fire as the flames engulf the building. The building is on fire, and random passers-by look in horror at the fiery glow. Songwoo screams in rage, "What the hell is going on here? Where is this fire coming from?" Dojun watches the fire from behind, noting the accuracy of his fire attack. The hero touches his chest, thinking about someone named Tusk and his possible reaction to this flame. A memory flashes. Dojun remembers Taska, the continent's strongest fire mage. Hyunwoo's face freezes in surprise, as if he realized something. Hyunwoo turns to Song abruptly and says, "Wait a minute." Hyunwoo notices something strange about the rift's behavior, and Songwoo is puzzled. The ominous energy of the rift above the city begins to dissipate. Hyunwoo and Songwoo start running, looking back at the disappearing portal. Song screams in panic, not understanding what is happening with the rift. His eyes widen in horror as he realizes what is happening. The rift finally disappears, leaving the night sky clear. Meanwhile, Dojun calmly climbs the stairs with a bag of crystals. His gaze is full of determination. He is clearly planning something. Breaking news. The fault in Mappo has suddenly disappeared. The Hero Association is in shock. The rift closed 29 days after Seo Dojun entered. An investigation is underway. The news also reports a mysterious fire at a landfill, not far from the former fault site. Passers-by gossip about Dojun, assuming his death and even gloating about it. Hidden by his hood, Dojun hears the gossip as someone talks about saving Seoul. The hero walks down the street, thinking sadly about the tree, but recognizing that this might be for the best. Dojun's gaze turns upward, remembering that he still has someone to protect. He approaches a building with a sign that says HCS Capital Yeongdongpo, clearly with a purpose in mind. In a dark stairwell, two men are having a quiet but ominous conversation. One of them, smoking a cigarette, talks about the death of a certain person and the boss's plans for the old woman and the girl. The bandit cynically assumes that the boss is already thinking about how to use the girl for his own interests. Suddenly, their conversation is interrupted by a short, "Hey!" causing one of them to turn around. Dojun appears in front of the bandits in a hoodie, his eyes glowing, and he asks, "Where is your boss?" Meanwhile, a black car creaks up to a nearby building. A foot in an expensive shoe elegantly emerges from the car, accompanied by a contented moo. An important gentleman in dark glasses adjusts them as he gets out of the car, and his assistant follows him. Grinning, he gloats, "That guy is dead. Finally, I can sleep peacefully." His assistant, Mr. Kim, checks his schedule. Lunch with Director Bayek, no plans for the evening. The boss squints slyly. "Then contact Madame Kang. Tell her that I will come this evening. Let her prepare a special meeting." The boss and his assistant confidently climb the stairs inside the building. Suddenly, Dojun's hidden face twitched. He clearly noticed the arrivals. The next moment, one of the bandits is thrown to the side by a powerful blow, while the boss and his assistant watch. The boss in dark glasses freezes in horror, a drop of sweat running down his face. The second bandit is thrown back by a powerful kick, not having time to react. The hooded Dojun calmly looks at the defeated bandit, while the boss and his assistant are stunned. Dojun's eyes glow under his hood as he orders the boss, "Crawl here like a dog." The boss trembles in fear, unable to hide his horror in front of Dojun. Dojun casually sits down in the chair, his leg enveloped in dark energy. The humiliated boss falls to his knees. Dojun repeats, "Didn't you hear me?" A tense silence reigns in the office as the boss kneels in front of Dojun. Dojun says coldly, "Bark. Someone like you doesn't deserve to be treated like a human being." The broken boss seems ready to submit to the humiliating order. The humiliated boss lets out a dog-like bark, his face distorted with fear. The assistant and other subordinates silently watch this scene of humiliation. Dojun, sitting in a chair, orders him to bark louder while he is on all fours. The hooded figure reveals the duplicity of Hwang Chang-seop, always ready to betray. Dojun's eyes sparkle, and he asks if he really thought that this was the first time he was dealing with such rats. Hwang Chang-seop desperately begs for mercy, promising complete loyalty. Dojin abruptly cuts off his pleas with a decisive action. The former boss flies away from the powerful reception, and the Avenger calmly looks at him. Dojun's gaze then lands on the assistant, whom he calls Four Eyes. Having settled into the boss's chair, he announces to the stunned assistant that he is now the boss and should not serve scumbags. Dojin allows his assistant to deal with the bosses, since it's not a problem for them. The assistant swallows nervously, a bead of sweat running down his face. The bespectacled man mumbles that the boss has a lot of connections, and his sudden disappearance will arouse suspicion. He timidly asks to spare the boss at least once, trying to find a way out. Dojin only coldly asks him why he is so slow-witted. The hero suggests getting rid of the boss using their usual methods, at the dump or at sea. Dojin threatens to throw the assistant to the monsters if he refuses, and everyone present freezes in fear. The former boss humbly begs for mercy, promising to serve faithfully and truly. Hwang Chang-seop is lying on the floor, swearing allegiance and begging for his life. Dojun coolly thinks that eliminating Hwang Chang-seop will solve many problems. Dojun wonders thoughtfully if he has become too soft-hearted. He extends his hand to Hwang Chang-seop as if giving him a chance. Chang-seop's face lights up with sudden hope of salvation. The former boss admits his mistakes, his hand reaching out to Dojun. Chang-seop begins to swear allegiance, but is interrupted by a puzzled exclamation. Suddenly, Chang-seop's hand bursts into flames, leaving him terrified. Dojun's eyes reflect the flames as he declares that this was his last chance. Dojun's powerful fire strike sends Chang-seop flying. The former boss's body begins to disintegrate, turning into dark dust. Dojun stands with his back to the defeated enemy, of whom only a dark silhouette remains. Dojun warns, "If you touch the family, there will be no mercy. They will have to be guarded around the clock." Officially, Dojun is considered to have disappeared along with the rift. The scene changes. In front of us is a sign for a fast food restaurant called VK Donald's. Inside, Dojun sits with his little sister while the world believes him dead. The phone in his hand shows a news article about Dojun's death. The hero reflects that his return from the dead will only create new problems. He tells his sister that they will be moving soon, and that they are already looking for a new house. The girl happily devours her burger, unaware of the troubles. She smiles happily, anticipating the imminent move. Dojun promises her a normal life, kindergarten and next year school. Dojun's sister sits at the table, her joy at her brother's promises turning to sadness. Dojun notices her mood and asks if she doesn't want to go to kindergarten. The girl admits that her peers tease her because of her absent parents, hurting her brother to the very heart. Dojun's face darkens under his hood, and a cold fury flashes in his eyes. He decides that his sister will not go to kindergarten so as not to see cruel children, and will go straight to school. The little girl excitedly asks again if she really doesn't need to go to kindergarten. Dojun thinks about an elite school where no one would dare to hurt his sister. Suddenly, the hero learns that his family has been placed in temporary housing, an ordinary motel. Dojun angrily scolds his assistant, not believing that he came up with such a safe place. The bespectacled man babbles that the motel belongs to their company, but Dojun abruptly cuts off his excuses. Dojun's sister exclaims happily upon seeing her brother while sitting next to her grandmother. The girl throws herself into the arms of Dojun as he enters, happy to see him. Grandma squeezes Dojun's hand with tears in her eyes, not believing that he returned alive. The little sister hugs her brother tightly, repeating his name through tears of joy. Dojun's face under the hood expresses surprise and the touching nature of the moment. The hero confirms his return to his family with a warm smile. The scene is back at the diner. The sister curiously asks if he is a hero. Dojun asks her if she likes the idea of him being a hero, but she says no. The little girl explains that heroes fight monsters and sometimes don't come back. The girl sadly admits that she just wants her brother and grandmother to always be close by. Dojun is touched by his sister's words. His face becomes thoughtful and sad. The little sister quietly calls her brother, seeing him immersed in his thoughts. The girl dreams that her brother and grandmother will always be close by and live happily ever after. Dojun recalls a harsh past where he was the last survivor among the volcanoes. The hero fought with monsters for a long time, losing everything dear to him along the way. But now, in spite of everything, close people appeared next to him again. Dojun believes that he can live peacefully here, protecting his newfound happiness. The scene changes abruptly. A helicopter flies over the city, foreshadowing new events. The camera shows a tall building, the headquarters of the Korean Heroes Association. Inside, Na Taiwan, the founder of the association, is unhappy with the lack of news. An employee of the association regretfully reports that there is no information about the current situation. Na Taiwan, looking out the window, irritably notes that the disappeared rift may appear again. The girl confirms his fears, but Taiwan abruptly cuts her off, demanding that she watch her words. The head of the association admits that this is a good outcome for people's safety, apologizing for the slip of the tongue. Na Taiwan is one of the 100 most respected heroes, capable of becoming president or overthrowing corporations. However, he is not interested in power, but in the safety of people and readiness for new ruptures. Tae-hwan orders everything to be checked thoroughly, and the employee reports that the residents have agreed to sell their houses. He orders a price above market to console the bereaved families. Someone is typing quickly on a laptop, the screen glowing brightly, heralding news. Na Taiwan chuckles thoughtfully, having received some new information. The world map shows simultaneous faults in different countries, raising suspicions. The employee is concerned about the situation in the UK, as the US and China have already stabilized. Taiwan notes that reliable heroes were sent to other rifts, leaving a gap. A sudden notification interrupts the tense anticipation of news. Taiwan's eyes widen in horror. He doesn't believe what he sees. Breaking news reports of a wave of faults in the UK, raising the alarm. Report confirms catastrophic wave of faults hits UK. The scene changes to show a busy street outside a modern building. Among the passers-by, Dojin walks in a hood, his red eyes looking forward attentively. The hero heads to a store that buys magic stones and hunter's trophies. Behind the store counter, a young employee begins greeting. Dojin suddenly appears, scaring the worker to the point of screaming. The employee calls the manager in a panic after recognizing the mysterious visitor. The manager puts down the newspaper and looks at the man who entered with bewilderment. The manager stands up, sternly asking Dojun if he was the one who sold the low-grade crystals. Dojun chuckles, saying that he just brought a lot of magic stones to sell. The hero throws the heavy bag of trophies onto the counter with force. The manager contemptuously declares that he will have no dealings with him and demands that he leave. Dojun asks him again with cold calm if he is sure about the refusal. The manager angrily explains that he has no intention of trading at a loss again. Dojun warns the manager with a menacing grin that he will regret his decision. The manager sighs in exasperation, muttering about commissions and the crystal distribution system. The manager is furious and orders Dojun to take his bag and get out. The hero calmly lifts his heavy bag from the counter. Numerous bright red magic stones spill out of the bag onto the floor. The faces of the employee and manager distort with extreme surprise at the sight of the contents. Among the scattering of stones, one huge legendary hero crystal stands out, shocking the manager. Dojun crosses his arms over his chest, nonchalantly offering to take the item if he doesn't need it. A close-up is shown of the hero's shining magic crystal of incredible value. The scene shifts to a laboratory where a certain Kurzaman is disassembling a crystal to create illegal substances. Kurzaman recoils in horror from the consequences of his dangerous experiments with crystals. The explanation reads, "The power of such a crystal awakened the hero in someone, becoming the key to strengthening. This artifact is now known as the hero's magic crystal, an incredibly valuable item." The store manager and employee are stunned to realize the true value of the stones Dojun brought. Dojun calmly offers them to collect the crystals back since they refused the deal. The manager's expression instantly changed, and he obsequiously asked Dojun to sit down and wait a bit. The assistant manager hurriedly and anxiously collects the scattered gems into a bag. Dojun calmly sips the offered drink, waiting for the manager to come to his senses. The manager, trying to save face, cautiously asks whether the 0.5% commission is too high. The hero coldly retorts, "If you don't like it, don't take it," forcing the manager to immediately back down. The manager asks with a wry smile why the commission is only 0.5%, and Dojun replies that he was just fed up. The manager bows low, tearfully apologizing for his thoughtless words. Dojun wearily states that he is tired of apologies and demands an answer on the bet. The manager mutters curses behind Dojun's back, calling him a rude person. With a heavy heart and drenched in sweat, the manager squeezes out, "Okay." The manager launches into a lengthy explanation about the rarity of the crystals, but Dojun cuts him off, saying it's too long. The hero suggests skipping the explanations, and the manager screams in panic, 9%! We're already at a loss!" Dojun coldly advises not to lose money, and the manager, in desperation, lowers it to 8, fearing the boss's wrath. In a comical scene, the manager continues to haggle down the percentage while Dojun calmly counters his complaints. A young store employee looks thoughtfully at one of the bright red magic stones. The manager falls to his knees, completely broken by Dojun's onslaught. Dojun, with icy calm, offers 1% commission out of respect for the past. The manager is mentally seething with rage, calling Dojun an extortionist, but outwardly he is depressed. The hero warns with a slight grin that this is not all. Dojun reports 7 more of the same bags, leaving the employee in complete shock. The manager immediately shouts to his assistant to prepare the contract without wasting a second. Dojun receives a notification on his phone that a huge amount of money has been credited, 67 billion won. The hero looks thoughtfully at the balance sheet, figuring that a house worth 110 billion no longer seems like a distant dream. Dojun understands that for high-grade crystals, ordinary gates are no longer suitable. He reflects on the need to move freely through dangerous fault zones. A sudden beep on Dojun's phone catches both his and his manager's attention. The hero looks at the screen gloomily, wondering if this is another wave of monsters. The alert reports an outbreak of the wave in the UK, but Dojun doesn't think it's serious. Close up, the hero's determined gaze says a lot. Dojun's profile. He is clearly considering the information he has received. The phone screen again shows details of the warning about the situation in the UK. Dojun's eyes reflect light as he makes his decision. The hero thinks with contempt of those who only pretend to have strength without possessing it. Dojun remembers how he used to rush to close rifts anywhere in the world without hesitation. Now, looking at passers-by, he understands that his approach has changed. The scene changes. A delicious piece of meat sizzles on the grill. An elderly man and a girl look in amazement at the dish being prepared. The girl exclaims, "Wow!" The group sits at a table in a restaurant where Dojun treats them to barbecue. The man, looking at the menu, asks Dojun in surprise if 250,000 won for 100 grams is too expensive. Dojun calmly drinks the water, replying that he earned a lot and they can eat as much as they want. The girl reaches out with her chopsticks with delight towards the juicy piece of meat. She tastes the meat and her eyes light up with pleasure. The girl is in ecstasy, enjoying the taste. Hearts appear around her. The elderly man watches in surprise as more meat is placed on the grill. Dojun looks thoughtfully, observing the reactions of his companions. Dojun smiles and orders a mountain of meat from the waitress, 4 servings for each of them. The elderly man is shocked. "Isn't this too much? How are we going to eat it all?" The hero carelessly replies that today they eat until they are full, and treats the old man. The old man, deeply moved, looks with trepidation at the offered piece. The girl enthusiastically hands the meat to the old man, praising its incredible taste. The man thinks tenderly of his granddaughter as he tastes the treat. The delicious meat causes the old man to experience true gastronomic ecstasy. The whole company enjoys a sumptuous dinner. The atmosphere becomes warmer. Suddenly, an elegant stranger with purple hair appears in the restaurant. The mysterious lady confidently walks towards their table, attracting everyone's attention. A stranger with purple hair addresses Dojun, who is chewing meat. The lady confidently invites the hero to talk in private. Dojun looks at her with confusion, interrupting his meal. The woman waits patiently for an answer, her back tense. With a slight smirk, she introduces herself. "I'm Hyun Ju-yeon, you know." The hero casually throws out an okay and returns to his food, shocking her. The sign "waiting area" hints at where the persistent guest was sent. Hyun Ju-yeon sits alone at the table while Dojun continues to eat dinner. Other restaurant patrons watch what is happening with curiosity. The girl glances warily at Hyun Ju-yeon, who is waiting with her arms crossed. Visitors whisper, "Is this Hyun Ju-yeon, an S-rank hero and a world star?" Everyone is wondering who the celebrity is waiting for and who dared to make her wait. Hyun Ju-yeon mentally says the name Seo Dojun, remembering his first appearance 2 months ago. She reflects. He was thought to have died in the Mapo Rift, but here he is. Meanwhile, Dojun continues to eat dinner, feeding the girl, not paying attention to the star. Hyun Ju-yeon remembers how just one look from him made her tense up. She doubts. A newbie reached S rank in 2 months when tycoons spend years. Ju-yeon comes to the conclusion that Dojun definitely has some kind of special ability. There is the sound of a chair being pushed back. It seems the wait is over. The satisfied old man and girl thank Dojun for the generous dinner. Dojun finally stands up, walking towards the patiently waiting Hyun Ju-yeon. Suddenly, a thug blocks his way, crunching as he steps on something on the floor. Dojun's gaze instantly turns icy, foreshadowing a clash. The intruder, with a mad grin, recognizes Dojun, asking how he got out of the gate. The name of the thug comes up, Kang Cheol-woo, an old acquaintance of Dojun. Kang Cheol-woo mockingly calls Dojun tenacious, comparing him to an insect. Hyun Ju-yeon is shocked. Kang Cheol-woo's appearance was a complete surprise to her. The brute stands defiantly in front of Dojun while the old man and the girl watch in fear. Kang Cheol-woo places his hand familiarly on Dojun's shoulder, who remains unperturbed. Dojun, ignoring the big guy, turns to Hyun Ju-yeon. "Hey, you had business with me, right?" Kang Cheol-woo looks at Hyun Ju-yeon in surprise, who is clearly embarrassed by his appearance. Dojun asks Ju-yeon to take care of the old man and the girl while he deals with the bully. The hero calmly instructs Ju-yeon to send his companions home by taxi. Hyun Ju-yeon, slightly taken aback, agrees to help, saying, "Got it." Dojun's gaze becomes predatory. He declares that it is time to collect the debts. Kang Cheol-woo grins back, looking forward to a fight with Dojun.